Counter-Narrative News, bringing you daily news today on Thursday, the 25th of May 2023. The Mexican President Obrador has railed against Republican Party candidate for the presidency in the United States, that's DeSantis. Obrador has argued that DeSantis should quit playing politics and using and abusing migrants, especially those from Mexico, for his political campaigning. Whereas on the one hand, one would agree with President Obrador's comments in this regards, then one also has to reflect on the fact that Obrador himself caved into Donald Trump's pressure when he was president around Trump's border regime on the US-Mexican border. It's fine for someone to be rhetorical against the toxic and extremely growing racist politics around migration as we see it globally as well, including around the DeSantis campaign. However, the point is to give actual leadership to the grassroots and migrant communities and not just a posture around their issues. Of course, Obrador himself is in the next 12 months going to face his own election, and it's perhaps this is part of his own electioneering in that regards. Now, connected to this also, it was quite hilarious to see how Elon Musk tried to host and fail a Twitter space in support of DeSantis yesterday, which I'm sure made lots of people who are counter-oppositional to all of this colonial, capitalist, racist mess laugh a little bit inside, or laugh out loud, very much so. However, going to the same issue of immigration and the politicization of that, in Britain, the far-right Tory regime continues to play this ridiculous game around criminalizing and demonizing migrants for a similar strategy of trying to whip up racism amongst the British public, of which there is a lot. Indeed, we are in quote-unquote Brexit Britain. It's a ridiculous game because on the one hand, of course, Britain has always needed, for millennia, it needs migrant labor to prop up the entire economy and the running of basic services all across every community on the island. On the other hand, it's using and abusing the immigration and asylum question to try and commandeer the British public, and I have to say with great successes in this regard, to blame anyone but those who are actually to blame for their conditions, which are the ruling and political elites in Britain. It cannot go without commentary as well that those who are promoting this toxicity of racism around immigration are from immigrant families themselves, not least the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the Home Secretary Suella Braverman, and a whole host of other people who have, well, one would say sell out their people, but did they even represent the grassroots peoples of the global south anyway? No, they didn't. They are part of the ruling classes in the global capitalist community who are there uniting with the global capitalist politics against oppressed and working class people in general. On this day, George Floyd was martyred or killed by racist police in the USA, which triggers 2 weeks of an intense uprising in Minneapolis and inspires a global push, an upsurge of black resistance across the world. However, that moment, although as we witness, many different capitalist companies tried to utilize the moment to posture like they are at all concerned with issues of black liberation, anti-racism. Conversations also went into schools amongst pupils and even staff meetings at that around that summer and subsequent to that for the next 6 months to a year. But since then, this whole entire wave has arguably been pushed back and pushed down, and we are back with a situation where there is no momentum around the black radical grassroots in the world in general, and so the challenges remain the same going forward. And finally, also on this day, back in 1963, the African Union leadership, that is, forms a special day for African liberation, which is the 25th of May every year, called African Liberation Day. African liberation has growing challenges around Again, the divisive politics, racist politics of migration, which is being internalized and being forced. This internalization, one has to remember, it's not just a natural development and occurrence. It's very consciously forced upon communities of the oppressed and exploited peoples to keep them divided. And it's very sad to see this type of anti-migrant racism flourish is not quite the right word, but expand amongst a state and the population like South Africa, who should be leading really the struggle against racism in general and migrant flows in particular. And around African Liberation Day, we still have the open sore, which was the Western campaign of destruction by means of the NATO operation in Libya in 2011, which directly then feeds on the political level the growth of racism and around racism, around migration as well, and also the physical growth of racism in terms of the people trafficking routes of the eastern and northern migration flows in Africa, which produce so much torture, rape, kidnap, enslavement, and death. It's a very sad state of affairs that needs urgent addressing by the grassroots, and eventually we need political struggles in the globe that can push back all of this mess. That's Counter-Narrative News. Please do continue supporting us by encouraging your friends and networks in subscribing to our YouTube channel, following us on social media, on Twitter at @counter_CNN. We welcome any ideas for reports and video features, and we welcome participation for others who would like to report similarly as we do on Counter-Narrative News, as we do regularly have guest speakers presenting different aspects. So you are welcome, and please do suggest a way. We wish everyone a fantastic evening. Many thanks.